Hey everyone, as you can see by the title, we're going to be talking about the birth of this little one. This is Scarlett, and she's currently 7 weeks old. I've been meaning to do this video now for about 7 weeks, but here we are. If you want to see the actual birth and labor vlog, or labor and birth vlog, because birth doesn't happen before labor, but if you want to see that video, it'll be linked down below. We did document as much as we could. I also have pretty much my whole pregnancy documented, so the playlist will be linked down below as well. But we're going to get right into this because this video is probably going to be long, so grab a drink, grab a snack, and...
If you're into cards, maybe she'll put it in the cards or, up there at some point.
No.
No, you're not going to do that?
No.
You don't know how to use... This is why we don't get subscribers. If you're here and this is your first time checking us out, hit subscribe now because we need all the help we can get, all right?
Anyway, if you are new, my name is Marissa.
I'm Ken.
Ken, Scarlett. So, I'm gonna be
Scarlett.
I'm gonna be looking at my phone because we have a nice little list of notes here that Ken took while I was being induced and everything. And
I induced her.
yes,
I did it. It was me.
that brings me to the very first part of this all. I was induced due to having gestational diabetes. They induced me at 39 weeks exactly. They were very afraid that this one's shoulders were going to get stuck coming out. But that wasn't the problem, as you'll find out later if you don't know. So, let's get right into this.
Well, we never got that far. I think they probably would have gotten stuck if we get...
Probably, but...
Very wide shoulders.
So anyway, on March 10th, 2020, I was sent to the hospital to be induced at about... It was scheduled for 1:30. We got there at about 1:39. They admitted me to a room about 2:10 after doing all the paperwork and everything. And they started the IV, they started the whole monitoring of her heart rate and everything.
Let's backtrack a little bit.
Already?
Yeah.
I don't want to get too far into,
Well, for those of you
specifics.
who didn't watch our vlog and watch or listen to the podcast or anything like that, this happened right at the start of the coronavirus pandemic, right at the very beginning of all this COVID-19 madness. And the day we go is when they put up the no visitor posting. So as soon as we're going into the parking lot, we're immediately panicked, oh my god,
Yeah,
am I going to be allowed there?
Yeah.
What's it going to be like?
So we had no idea.
Yeah, they let us both in, and it was
Yeah.
fine. As far as that goes, but that was very, very nerve-wracking at first.
Well, we found out it was just him. That's it.
Yeah, no
I
one
couldn't
else
have
would
any
come.
family or friends, and this was our first baby, so it was very devastating. But
It was fine. I mean, the less people for me, the better.
Yeah,
I don't
I
like
know.
people in general. Not that I don't like her family. I'm just saying I just don't like a lot of people around.
it just sucked. But
yeah. I mean, it was fine.
so anyway, yeah, they admitted me around 2:10. I got the IV. They hooked me up to the fetal heart rate at 245. After all that, they set me up with the Foley balloon. That was at about 4:30 in the afternoon.
Was fun.
That was terrible. If you can avoid doing the Foley balloon, avoid it because it just was not fun.
I think the
amount of people that were trying to get it in was...
Well, they didn't have the nurse come in and do it. We had it was a nurse, a CNA, and a brand new CNA.
That's true.
Someone to her first day, and this
Yeah.
was her first Foley balloon, and we're just well, she probably didn't realize this at the time because she was all nervous. But I'm just standing there listening to their dialogue, and I'm like, what, what? But I mean, they got it in at first. They got it in the wrong spot.
Yeah, they put it in my cervix or something.
Yeah, it was in the cervix instead of right before the cervix, and they had to take it out and put another one in, and they got that one in, and they were very confident that it was in correctly, and I was like, I don't think so. It's going to come right out.
So, right after they blew up the whole thing with water, it was just so uncomfortable. I started feeling crampy right away, and I was not liking it. They, taped the little tube part to my leg, and it was super uncomfortable. So after the Foley balloon, they checked my cervix. I was at 2 centimeters dilated. I was 50% effaced, and baby was at -2 stationed.
If there are any doctors or nurses out there, how do they figure that out just with their hand? How do you measure with your hand inside of a person? I want to know this. How could they tell with their... I don't get it.
So after they checked me, they gave me 50 micrograms of misoprostol. This was a pill to help soften my cervix. So they hooked me up to the fetal heart monitors. Every time they would give me this pill, I would have to be hooked up for 2 hours, which was not fun because I hate laying in bed for that long unless I'm sleeping. And you can't sleep when you have a ton of anxiety about giving birth. So
not only that, you have nurses coming
yeah,
in literally
in
every
and out,
hour.
in and out, in and out.
If it wasn't nurse, it was housekeeping.
Yeah. So around 7:12 p.m., I went to the bathroom, and I felt this pressure, and I was like, this balloon's going to come out, and sorry about the dishwasher. And I was right. I was like trying to hold it in, but it just popped right out. So I'm just kind of holding it in my hand, and I told him, I'm like, you're going to get the nurse, the balloon's out, and he was like, how do I do it? And I'm like, just call, like, on the bed.
I had a lot of panicked calls to the nurses.
Yeah. So
this wasn't the last time.
So they called, and I'm just sitting there waiting and waiting. It was really awkward. There was some blood on it, which was normal. So then the nurse came in. They took out the Foley balloon, like the part that they strapped onto my leg, and I got another round of the misoprostol. That was at 10:03 p.m.
Now, this medication, you get 5 rounds.
Yes, this is my second round.
You're not allowed to get a round after that. They move on to something else, and this was round number 2,
yes.
Right? Okay.
So around midnight, my belly was very hard, and I felt very gassy, and I was thinking this must be contractions.
I don't think it was, honestly.
I don't know.
It was weird. Like, as soon as they started giving her the misoprostol, like, her tummy got, like, hard. Like, really hard, the whole thing. And it wasn't at periods of time. It was the whole time. Like, it didn't get...
Yeah.
So it was like a constant...
Just,
I think it bloated you. But,
that's what I think.
You know, it was just strange.
So at 2 a.m., the nurse came in, and they told me that we were going to hold off on my 3rd round of misoprostol because labor and delivery was full. So I guess they were afraid that if I had any progress, then I wouldn't be able to go and have the baby. So we waited. Then they came back in an hour and 20 minutes later at 3:20 in the morning, gave me my 3rd round of misoprostol, and I had another 2 hours of the fetal heart monitoring. They had checked me at some point early in the morning. It might have been, it was probably right after that round, so probably like 5, 6 in the morning. They checked me, and I was 2 centimeters dilated, so nothing changed at all. I was 60% effaced, so 10% more than the last check, and still a -2 stations. At 9:24 a.m., I had my 4th round of misoprostol. Mm-hmm. Yeah, is that, are we keeping count here?
Yep.
That's my 4th round. Did another fetal heart monitoring. At 11:40 in the morning, I possibly had my bloody show. I'm not sure because this is my first birth.
It wasn't anything to really write home about, you know. It wasn't a whole lot going on.
Well, I mean, when I would go to the bathroom, there was blood, so I just assumed.
She started bleeding, like, right after that Foley mishap.
Yeah, I know. But it just kept happening pretty much. So, like, every time I go to the bathroom, it would
didn't get any better.
Be something there. Either. So, at 2:30 in the afternoon, I had my last dose of misoprostol. This was now March 11th. They had talked to me and said that if nothing had changed, we would have to start Cervidil, which I was very nervous about because this pill I would have to take, or I think it was, you would vaginally insert it. I'm not sure on how you take it.
It was an insertion,
yeah.
And it's a 12-hour dispersal through your system. So
and I'd be monitored for 12 hours.
You have to just stay there for 12 hours.
And I was not looking forward to that.
That was the next step that we were looking at if this didn't work, and it didn't work. So that was the next step we were leaning towards.
Yes.
And I went home for cheesecake.
Well, no, you went home to go take care of her dog. I mean, my parents were taking care of her, but just to come home and see her.
I came home to get you some cheesecake. Let's not lie.
So my whole pregnancy, towards the end of my pregnancy, I craved cheesecake really badly, and go figure, I ended up with gestational diabetes. But
at the hospital, her food that was coming was for a diabetic, and it sucked. Let me tell you, I'm like eating like a king, and she's over here having like garbage, like just. Yes. I shouldn't say garbage, like it's healthy good. Food, but it's like not what she wants. I mean, she's used to eating normal even while having the diabetes.
It wasn't even bad. Like it'd only go up a couple of points if I were to like splurge on like.
She didn't need to have the diabetic menu
no.
Because her numbers never she monitored, and her numbers never got excessively high. So we're like, all right, well, I'll just get the cheesecake because they're obviously not going to get you a soda. You're not going to get a pudding or anything like that.
My sweet grandmother knew I loved cheesecake, and she felt bad that she could not come to the hospital. So she sent one to the house, and knew Ken was coming home. So he brought that there. Alright, so backing up, I had my last round of misoprostol at 2:30. He went home. He came back. We had the hospital dinner. I was sitting up eating with him. I was eating my lovely cheesecake, which was freaking amazing. I take my last bite, and I felt something happening down below. I was like, I don't know. I think I have to pee. I'm not sure what's going on. So I walk over to the bathroom, and right at 5:07 p.m., my water breaks. And that was very interesting.
I've never seen anything like that before. That was exciting.
It was exciting to see liquids coming.
It was just exactly what I imagined. Like, when you think of someone's water breaking, like, you have a vision in your head of what it looks like. That's exactly what it looks like.
I was just laughing, and I think you were laughing too. We're just both
I couldn't stop. And then I'm like, I call the nurse station, and I'm like, I think her water just broke. And they're like, okay.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, what do I do? We'll send someone over. Okay.
And again, it took them so long to come. I'm just standing there in the bathroom, like, just, my water dripping between me. And, like, we had this on films in the birth vlog, but it's just, like, it's just so funny. I'm just standing there, like, what do I do? What do I do?
The nurse comes in and is like, well, we don't have any room in labor and delivery yet, so, like, you're going to have to wait. Why don't you take a shower?
Yeah. But, before all that, they came in, a doctor came in at 5:39 to check me, and I was 4 centimeters dilated. Finally.
Progress.
It was 80% face and -1 station, so we had made progress finally.
Slight progress.
Well, more than the 2 centimeters. So right before they were taking me down to labor and delivery, they were inserting the IV for penicillin because I tested positive for Group B strep.
They forgot to do that.
Yes, we had to keep reminding them that I needed it. This was at 7:50 that they finally gave it to me. When we had reminded them when my water broke, I need this.
The funny thing is, they had no room in labor and delivery, so they're like, why don't you take a shower? Then she gets in the shower, and they're like, oh, we got a spot open. Come on, hurry up.
I'm trying to wash myself. Like,
what the hell's going on right now?
But, so they inserted that, and it didn't feel too good. It was burning. I did not like the way it felt at all, but they assured me it was fine. At 9:52, so 2 hours later, I finally get to labor and delivery. I don't understand why it took so long from that point.
I don't either, and here's the funny thing. We get down there, and I'm looking around, and I think I said this on the podcast, too. The room right next to us, empty. The room directly across from us, had a couple, and they were doing chemo treatment there. But off on the other side, none of the rooms had people. There were no names, nothing.
So I don't know where all these women went.
There were that time that we're in there. We heard maybe 4 babies screaming. And
I really didn't hear much. Like, I always at least in the movies and TV shows, you hear everybody screaming.
No women in labor.
Or even I'd read
twice. I think we heard women actually give birth.
Well, yeah, I read stories online. And people the woman screaming, giving birth scared me. But yeah, I think we only heard 2 people.
Yeah, it was dead in there. There was nobody there. So for them to not have room was kind of surprising to me.
Yeah.
Because when we got there was no one there. So what'd they do? Kick everybody out?
I guess you got the baby out. Let's go. But so anyway, at 10:27 p.m. Again, this is still March 11th. Was it the 11th? Yeah, I went on the 10th. This was the 11th. They started the Pitocin. They were giving me 2 milliliters every hour, and they were increasing it. Wait, does that make sense? 2 milliliters per hour, increasing every 30 minutes. That's what he wrote. I'm just trying to figure out his notes here.
2 milliliters, yeah, or yes, yep. That's exactly
Sorry.
It. And then increase it by 2 every half hour.
Yes, that's all right. So that was at 10:27. They started at 11. They upped it to 4 milliliters. 11:30. They upped it to 6.
That's when shit started hitting the fan.
Yes, at midnight. Now on to March 12th, they upped it to 8. 12:19. They gave me penicillin, and 12:40. I started having very, very bad pains. This had to have been contractions. I have no doubt in my mind.
They
by this
were.
point.
Well, they had you hooked up to the monitor, and I mentioned this during our podcast as well. You could see the contractions on the screen, when they're happening, and they were at the point to where she could have delivered. That's how strong and how frequent they were.
But I wasn't
2 minutes apart, and
I wasn't dilated that much, though. I don't think.
No,
well, we hadn't been checked yet, but assuming.
You weren't 10.
No, I definitely wasn't.
You were nowhere near 10.
No.
The medication was just working way too fast.
Which I was told this would happen by other people that have done through Pitocin. So
worked way too fast. So they started backing off on it, and that's when they started talking about the epidural.
Yeah, so what we have in my notes is I had the bad pains at 12:40, I had pelvic pain, and I guess I was just having a lot of amniotic fluid come out. I don't know.
There was a lot of blood.
It was just a whole thing that we'll get into
just,
afterwards.
Yeah, it was. You know, it was. You were.
I was bleeding a lot.
You were in labor.
Yeah.
I mean, it's.
Yeah, so I dealt with the contractions for about 2 hours. My goal was to have a drug-free birth. Like, I had nothing against having epidurals or anything to ease the pain, but I just really, really wanted to do this natural, and I couldn't do it. It was so painful. I was bawling my eyes out. The nurse kept asking, well, not asking over and over, but like she reminded me, like, you can do it. You're not a superhero. You don't have to be a superhero. You can get the epidural, or you can get the gas, whatever you want to do. Like,
well, the gas was pointless though.
Yeah, because like
it doesn't relieve pain. It just makes you high. Like, that's all it does.
And like
look it up. It's not a pain reliever.
But you have to like you have to breathe it in as your contractions start, and I couldn't figure out how I would be doing that. I didn't try. I should have tried it, but I just went for the epidural. They put that in at 2:05 in the morning. That was a whole ordeal too. It was, I don't know how, it was very hard to get the epidural when you're in that much pain.
The epidural process was weird because the guy who came in with the stuff to do it, we thought was the guy who was going to do it, but he wasn't.
Yeah,
he just like set
the guy that set up.
And then like it happened kind of like weird, like kind of like they got it all set up, and he's like, everything's ready, and then this lady doctor just comes in, like they're holding everything for her. Like, she just literally walks in, she puts her gloves in, she walks up, puts the epidural in, leaves, and we're just like, what just happened?
I guess, well, she's the anesthesiologist, I guess, so.
It was just weird. It was like, I feel like we had, like, celebrity in our presence at that point. The way she came in and left, and, like, it was just very odd.
So later, like, to skip ahead, I was checked at 3:41 in the morning, and I was 5 centimeters dilated. So I'm going to guess I made it to about 4.5, 5 centimeters for the pain, which I guess isn't bad. I made it halfway through, but I don't know. I know it's not my fault. I just felt very disappointed in myself.
It's not your fault.
I know.
The medication they use is like...
It's just very strong. I think if I were to do this without being induced, I probably could have did it. I don't know for sure.
I think you could have went naturally if you had not gone in, if it hadn't been a scheduled thing, you know?
But again, when you'll find out later in the story, I don't think we could have had her naturally. It wouldn't have worked.
I think so. I think if your body had naturally done it, that's a conversation for another day, but I think if your body had naturally gone into labor on its own, you could have did it. I think you could have did it. I think that too much was being forced by drugs.
Yeah.
Your body was like, nah, I don't know about this.
Yeah, which I really didn't like, but I had to do what my OB said.
Yeah, which wasn't very much at all.
No. So, at 2:23 in the morning, they lowered my Pitocin to 8. So, I guess, I didn't really know what was going on, but I guess the baby wasn't tolerating it very well.
Yeah, she was, just...
Like the heart rate, or...?
Yeah, it wasn't that bad. Like, it was just kind of, just a little stressful. But nothing abnormal.
So, like I already said, then I was checked at 3:41 in the morning. I was 5 centimeters dilated. 100% effaced, so we made some good progress there.
I don't know if I wrote it in there, but the contractions did go further apart. Once they lowered the Pitocin back down, and after they gave her the epidural, they went back to like 6 to 10 minutes apart, and it stayed that way pretty much for hours until you started pushing, which was, I think you're coming up to that.
Almost there. So at 5 a.m., I needed another dose of the epidural, which, again, I didn't want, but I was in a lot of pain. I think at this point, my back was hurting a lot. Like, I was just in severe pain. I think, like, I was having back labor, but I don't know. I'm assuming, since it was just so painful.
I was just assuming that it was wearing off and you're just in pain.
That, too. I don't know. I have no idea. But I remember my back was hurting. My whole, like, pelvic area, everything was, like, on fire.
Just confined to a bed.
Yeah, that's the other problem. I was in bed for, like, almost 12 hours.
Once they do the epidural, you can't
get up anymore. They put a catheter in, everything. And
the catheter was an issue of its own, because as soon as they put that in, the catheter bags weren't filling up with pee. They were filling up with blood.
I mean, it was a mixture.
Yeah, well, it was mostly blood. And I told the nurse probably twice, I think it was, at least once, but I think I said twice. I was like, hey, it's, very bloody. And they didn't seem
They put it in their notes, but they didn't really...
There was no concern given, so it was just like, oh, yeah.
And the weird thing is, I didn't really pay attention. Like, I heard him say it, but I didn't really think... Like, it didn't alarm me. I was just like, all right, nobody really seems to be...
I don't know. When
worried.
You go through 3 full catheters and it's, like, blood, that's... I was concerned, but I didn't,
Yeah.
They didn't seem bothered by it, so I wasn't going to let it bother me. They're the professionals, so.
We'll talk about more of that in a little bit here.
Yeah.
But so at 5:45 in the morning, they checked me again. I was 8 centimeters dilated. So at this point, we were like, oh, we're probably going to have this baby at like 8 in the morning, which would have been cool because...
Wishful thinking.
I was born on a Thursday. She actually came on Thursday, so I was like, all right, she'll be born on Thursday. I was born at, I think, 8:45 in the morning, so I was like, oh, it's going to be all around the same time.
No.
No.
No. It just dragged on.
So after all that, we ended up going down to 4 milliliters of Pitocin. The baby wasn't responding well to anything over 8 milliliters per hour. And around 10:27 in the morning, I was checked again, and I was finally at 10 centimeters dilated. But they wanted to have me wait on pushing because she was so high up in my pelvic area, I guess.
Yeah, she was still negative in the stationing.
Yeah, she hadn't dropped, so they were like, all right, let's just wait, like, take it from there. Which at that time I was really confused. I was like, you can wait, like, being 10 centimeters dilated? Like,
yeah, oh yeah.
You can just chill here, like, nothing...
It's not the end of the world.
I guess. It was just really weird to me at the time.
The way she lays just kind of gives me a vision of how she was in there. As
Probably.
to why she wasn't where she should have been, you know? Like, I just can picture her. She has a way of sitting. It's...
Yeah.
We'll have to show you someday.
So, 11:58 a.m. Again, this is March 12th. I was finally starting to push. Well, they had me start to push. They had me go for about 2 hours, up to about 2:05. We tried the regular way of on the back.
They did the scalp monitoring for the contractions too.
I did not want, but I didn't know they were doing it.
They didn't even ask. They just did it.
And she has a mark on her head.
She just has a scar now on her head.
Yeah. Yeah, I did not... If I had known they were going to do that, I wouldn't have done it because I knew it would leave a mark, but it is what it is.
Her contractions were hard to track at this point because of the lowering of the Pitocin. What was on the screen at that point was making no sense, so I understand why they did it.
So, at some point during all the pushing, like towards the end, the nurse, she had been checking the baby the whole time, and she was just... What they had told me was she was stuck in my pelvis. Like, her head was not coming out. She was also sunny side up, which was really strange to me because we were getting bi-weekly biophysical profile scans of her. Like, I was getting bi-weekly ultrasounds, and she was always head down in the correct position the whole time. So I guess during the induction, she somehow flipped.
That's a little confusing. Bi-weekly, not as in every 2 weeks.
Yeah, sorry.
We were getting 2 a week.
That's what I messed up.
We were getting...
Twice a week we would see this baby, and she was perfect.
Yeah, she was never sunny side up.
So I guess the whole induction made her turn.
I don't know, the way she had her hands in there, who knows?
Maybe she should have made it turn to herself. She had scratches on her eyes too, which I think the nurse did by accident.
Oh yeah.
So
this baby got messed up.
Yeah. So they told me there's no way she was coming out, and then the nurse said I could try on my side, and I was like, okay, let's do it. I want to try on my side. So I did that, and it did not work at all. My OB came in and told me they've never been able to successfully have someone birth the baby that was the way she was in my pelvis. So they had to set me up for a C-section, which...
That happened quick.
Yeah, that really hit me hard. I was extremely sad about it. Again, it wasn't the way I wanted my birth to go. I mean, I was open-minded to anything happening because obviously you can't predict your birth. But it's just, it really sucked because I wanted I wanted the natural drug-free birth. I wanted to have her come out, do the skin to skin. But I was like, all right, we're going to do a C-section. We could still have all that happen.
There's a lot of no asking at the hospital. It was just more or less they tell us what they're doing. Like, we didn't really have a say at that point. We didn't like sign a waiver. We didn't sign anything about it.
Which was weird.
Everything we just did at their discretion, and they just kind of did it all matter of fact, which is fine. It was just strange to not have questions as opposed to just being told what we're doing.
So, like I said, 2:05. So I tried pushing from 11:58 in the morning to 2:05 p.m. They then told me we would have to do the C-section. At 2:45, they took me down to the operating room. They prepped everything. They started setting up.
Just sitting there alone. They wouldn't let me in.
Yeah, he had to wait.
It was just terrifying.
But we're lucky we were able to even go in with the whole coronavirus going on. But again, this was the beginning of this whole pandemic, so...
Yeah, they suited me up pretty well.
Yeah. So, baby was born at 3:17 p.m. on March 12th. She came out fine. Well, she did, but you said that she wasn't breathing right away.
Yeah.
Which I didn't know this until afterwards. I didn't realize it.
They were doing a lot of the suction stuff. Like she didn't have her initial cry until it felt like minutes, but I'm sure
probably literally like 30 seconds.
Yeah, it's probably like 30 seconds because we're just sitting there listening to the suction. Like, okay, when is she gonna cry? When is this gonna happen? But I mean, yeah, there was a lot of that. She wasn't like breathing at first when they took her out, but they got her too quickly, which was pretty nice. We have that on video as well. I think that's in the blog.
While they were setting me up for my C-section, I was just between my nerves and like the amount of blood I had been losing.
Her blood pressure was so low.
Yeah, I was shaking. I was crying hysterically. Like I was
looked scary. Like the things I saw in that room, I never want to see again. Yeah. And like the way they're talking, like. Because her bladder was filling up with blood. Like we kind of mentioned. Which we didn't know the severity with the catheter bags. I'm sure they did, but they just didn't say anything. But after she came out and they get her all situated there, I'm distracted with her because I'm like, I'm on cloud 9. I'm like taking pictures with her. And she hasn't even held her yet.
I didn't even get to see what she looked like or anything. Like, I'm just looking over to the side like...
Yeah, I cut the cord and everything. And then,
which is nice that you get to do that.
And then you said something. You're like, can I hold her? Yeah. And then everyone's like, yeah, of course. Yeah. So I handed the baby to the nurse, and the nurse handed the baby to Marissa.
Yeah, they had her wrapped up in a blanket. They put her on my chest. Yep. And, I was so excited to finally meet her.
I'm standing there before I sit down, and I'm just looking at what all the doctors and nurses are doing. Wow.
You saw all my organs were on me.
Yeah, they had a lot of stuff on you.
That's crazy.
Like,
because you don't feel anything, obviously.
I'm sure it wasn't as bad as my mind tells me.
It's probably, my uterus and
just things were outside of you, and
they were probably the uterus, the placenta, stuff like that, I'm assuming.
They're like sending people back and forth to get things, and like one nurse is saying, I've never done something like this before, but let's try it, and I'm like...
See, I didn't hear any of this. I was too focused on the baby.
Like, I didn't know what was going on at this point, but, like, I knew something in the back of my mind just was not right now, but they weren't freaking out, so I wasn't freaking out. Yeah. Still. I did start freaking out at some point, though, but that's all right.
So, backtracking to when they handed me Scarlett, in my mind, I was like, why is she wrapped up? Like, why aren't they just putting her on my chest? Like, I've seen so many, like, C-sections and read stories. Like, they still get to do skin-to-skin and try breastfeeding. And, like, I never really thought about it to, like, actually doing this story now. But I guess because of the whole bladder thing, like, they already knew I wasn't going to be able to hold her.
You could.
Because, I held her for, like, 5 minutes? And then I said...
Anyone could look at you and tell that you weren't holding a baby.
I said, you were looking at me and you're like, are you okay? And I'm like, uh-huh. And in the meantime, I'm, like, passing out.
Your eyes are rolling up in your head. Your head's dropping.
And I said to him, I was like, I can't hold her. You got to take her from me. And he's held a newborn for, like, I don't know, like... 5 minutes, like our friend's baby before.
I didn't know what to do, so I just kind of held it.
He's like, I don't know what to do. I was like, get one of the doctors. You have to get somebody right now. Like, I'm gonna drop the baby. And so they had one of the doctors or nurses or somebody come grab her. And like, I think I passed out like right after that.
Yeah,
like,
as soon as you passed out, but I woke up.
I kept waking up, but I remember passing out immediately, and like it was just so scary feeling. Like I can't. Yeah. I wanted to hold my baby, but I couldn't. Like
I still didn't think anything was like wrong because like. Everyone was still active.
Yeah, they were still calm and everything.
And then our nurse, who had been our nurse... for
the whole labor and delivery.
For that labor and delivery, she was like, all right, let's get you back to the room with Scarlett, and they'll finish up with Marissa.
Well, first you were holding the baby for a little bit. They took some pictures of us, which was really nice. I just kept looking at you guys and the baby. And, again, I was still passing out. I remember you asking me, like, are you all right? I was like, yeah, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
So around 3:30, 3:40, they took Ken and Scarlett back to our original room while they worked on me.
Back to the labor and delivery room.
So yeah, I just thought, it'll be quick.
They told me 15 minutes to a half hour she'll be in there and I can just hang out with my baby, which was awesome. Yeah. They left me alone in the room with the baby for a little while. And then they come in like, angry nurses with needles and shit, and they're like, we need to prick your baby.
Yeah, because again, gestational diabetes, so they have to test her blood sugar, which I already knew about.
I'm like, okay, whatever.
But you knew about that too.
Yeah, I wasn't worried about it. They do the first test and like, oh, shucks. She's one number off from being good. She got a 39, it's supposed to be 40. That means we'll have to test again in a half hour. I'm like, oh, all right, that's cool. They're like, we're gonna give her some glucose, and her numbers will go up, and everything will be fine. I'm like, all right, cool, that's great, awesome. And I'm still just hanging out with my baby.
And you weren't even like holding her. You said
no,
you just had her in her bassinet.
She's in the bassinet, and I'm like just leaning there like a creep, talking to her, and just telling her, oh, mommy's coming soon. Don't worry, don't worry. So a half hour goes by. Mommy's still not there. It's fine, whatever. It's only been a half hour. They come back in with the glucose and or no, they gave her the glucose. They come back in with the thing a half hour later. They take her blood again, and this time it's even lower. And I don't remember what it was at this point. I think it was like 31. I think it went to. It went from 39 to 31. I'm pretty sure that's what it was. And they're like, oh, that's not good. And I'm like, why? What happened? Glucose. And they're like, well, she's lower now. And I'm like, okay, well, isn't glucose supposed to make your glucose levels go up? And they're like, yeah, that's the problem. And I was like, okay, what do we do? So they get her more glucose, and then they're like, can we supplement with some formula? Is Marissa gonna get mad if we give the baby formula? And I'm like, no, I don't think so. Like, no, the baby needs it. We gotta get that score up. Let's do it. Come on, I'm down. So they give me the bottle, and they're like, here, feed your baby. The baby's in the bassinet, and I'm not holding the baby. Like, I don't know how to feed a baby. I've never done anything with a baby, so I just stick the bottle in the baby's mouth. Baby's laying on her back now, drinking formula. No one's correcting me. Like, I know this is wrong now, but like, nobody's telling me what I should be doing or anything. Like, they're just like letting me. I could have probably been stabbing this baby, and they would have been like, I don't think
so, but
yeah, like, it's like they didn't care that I didn't know what I was doing. I had no clue how to feed this baby.
Finding this out like later, I was like, what? They didn't teach you how to do anything?
They didn't tell me I could do skin to skin. I wanted to. I didn't know if I should. I didn't know if it would just be weird if I took my shirt off and like had my baby on me. I just didn't know.
That's what aggravates me too, because I feel like if they had given me the baby when I first gave birth and like let me try to breastfeed, that would have helped her sugars go up. And if they did skin to skin, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that helps with sugars too. Yeah. And like, none of this happened. So
no, they went from telling us what they're doing to not telling us a damn thing, and it's not helping anybody.
Yeah.
So now over an hour has gone by, probably about an hour and a half. I think at this point it's like 90 minutes. I'm starting to freak out. I'm like, where's Marissa? Where's this woman at? Like, why is she not back yet? And the nurse is like, I don't know. I'll go check. So,
and that's probably about the time that I'm realizing I've been in this room way too long, and I keep hearing talk about blood, and like I could feel the panic in the room, and I try asking one of the doctors or whoever was around me, I'm like, what's going on? And they tell me, and I pass out. So I don't even know what they said. Like, so then I wake up again.
What's going on?
Oh. I wake up again, and my doctor tells me, you've had a problem with your bladder, you've been bleeding, we're working on everything now, but she explained it to him better, which...
Yeah, well, first the nurse came in and explained it to me in terms that were okay and understandable. They're like, oh, Marissa's bladder was bleeding, and I'm like, yep.
Yeah, you already knew that.
Okay.
That's the same nurse that you've been telling.
I was like, that's what I said. Whatever. So she's like, all right, that her bladder would not stop bleeding. They flushed her bladder 3 times, and then they went in and did a scope. The
doctor came and told you all this, right?
Well, the nurse told me first. Okay. Yeah, first the nurse told me. And she was like, they went in, they did a scope, they wanted to make sure there's no rips, tears, or anything like that. And I was like, all right, that's cool. And they're like, they're just finishing up now, and the doctor will be in a minute to talk to you. And I was like, great, okay, awesome. I need to go to the bathroom right now. So I went to the bathroom, she stayed with the baby, and I just like bawled my eyes out for I don't even know how long. Oh. And then I came back into the room, and as I was coming back in, the doctor was coming in. She was pretty much repeated what the nurse had said.
Didn't you miss one part? Because then they test the baby for the 3rd time before all that happened? Before you went to the bathroom?
No, the 3rd time. Well, yeah, that might have been.
I think because from what you told me before, because you thought you were losing both of us.
Yeah, I thought that anyway. I had a lot of bad thoughts going through my head.
Well, they might have tested the blood sugar I think it was right
after the nurse told me. While that nurse was telling me, they were doing the 3rd test. And that's when I was
failed really bad.
I got to get out of this room.
She failed at like a 17?
Yeah, it was 14.
14?
Yeah, she was critically low for her glucose level. And they were like, all right, she's got to go to NICU. And this is right after the nurse had told me that they were finishing up with her. And so I go to the bathroom, and I come back. And then the doctor's coming in, and she's telling me the same thing the nurse told me. And I was just like, okay, so everything's good. She's like, yeah, there were no complications. And I'm like, oh, yeah.
That wasn't a complication?
Yeah, I was like, that's pretty much the definition of one. But anyway, she leaves, and they're like, they don't...
NICU staff?
Yeah, well, the NICU... One of the NICU staff came in, introduced herself, didn't do anything. She didn't take the baby or anything, but they just like, we're going to prep a room for NICU for the baby. We're asking about getting more glucose because it was critically low. They didn't know. I don't know why they didn't know, but they didn't know what to do at that point. They were like, we don't know if we should give her more or if we should give her more formula or whatever. And I was like, okay, because I don't know what to respond with. She leaves the room, and then it's just me and one of the other nurses, not our main nurse. I don't remember this other lady's name. I just don't remember much about her, but I know that she was just another nurse that took over for our main nurse. And she was like, well, they're going to come in a few minutes to take the baby to NICU. And I'm just like, no, they're not. Like, Marissa's coming here first, and she needs to see this baby, because if she comes back with no baby, you guys are going to have to deal with that. I'm not dealing with that. Like, that you cannot do that to anybody.
I wonder what I would have did.
I was like, Marissa comes first, she gets to see her baby, and then the baby goes to NICU. And they're like, yeah, that we could do that. So they're rolling Marissa in one door. The other door, the NICU staff's coming in, and I'm just like, no,
not yet.
No,
too early.
Like, what is going on right now?
And I didn't even know yet. I'm like, what?
She's out of it, and just, they're telling her things, and I'm just like,
the baby has to go to NICU.
I was like, Marissa, she failed the glucose tests all the time. It's like every time. And she was just like, well, what does that mean? And I'm like, well, it means she's got to go to NICU. And of course,
ball my eyes out.
I mean, no one wants to hear that.
No.
So we bring the baby to Marissa. We put the baby on Marissa, skin to skin, and
finally,
then just
that was literally 5 minutes.
Minutes after that, they're like,
oh yeah,
I
came back at 5:38. So I had her at 3:17. Came back to the room at 5:38. So that was a long time to be in the operating room.
2.5 hours.
But yeah, I got to finally see her slightly coherent, and I mean that was the greatest few minutes of my life, and literally rip her away from me.
Take her up to NICU. So then we're just hanging out, waiting to. I don't know why we're just waiting. Like we're just.
I think we were waiting to go to a recovery room. I don't know if I have anything else in my notes about that.
Well, they had one ready. We went to NICU.
No, we stopped the notes after that. So.
Yeah, why take notes?
No, I know.
At that
think
point,
it was probably a couple of hours, maybe another hour that we got sent to the recovery room.
We didn't go.
Oh, we didn't go straight to recovery. That's right.
The first thing they did was they gave me a sandwich. They gave me a sandwich in labor and delivery before we left to go to NICU. And on the way to NICU, they got us both more sandwiches. So it was sandwich time at this point.
I didn't eat my sandwich, though, until after the NICU.
I know.
They got them, but they had them on the, with all our belongings.
I was holding them on the way to NICU.
And we're both just starving, because I hadn't eaten.
I had already eaten.
Oh, you're right. I hadn't ate since the cheesecake when my water broke. That's how long it's been. It had been over 24 hours.
Don't ever let a hospital tell you they don't have sandwiches. I saw the sandwich room. There's sandwiches. There's lots of sandwiches. But anyway.
So it was a few hours after she went to NICU. I think we went right up.
It wasn't a few.
It was right away.
It was less than an hour. They gave me a sandwich. I ate the sandwich. We went to NICU.
They rolled me there in my bed too. Yeah. I was in a wheelchair and I was just laying in the bed, which was really weird to me.
We spent a lot of time in NICU, and the nurses had changed over, and we ended up with the nurse that we went into labor and delivery with, who is, oh my god, this lady is awesome. I wish I remember
her name. She was so awesome.
Yeah, she was the best. She was just showing how to
the breastfeed,
hand express and everything. She was perfect, phenomenal nurse.
So I had to do more skin to skin with the baby. We were trying to breastfeed.
She just pretty much let us stay there as long as we wanted.
Yeah.
She was like, all right, just let me know when you want to leave. And then it got to the point where she needed to go back. So
I felt bad. I was like, all right, we'll go back to our room, and they told me I can come back and see the baby anytime, really. So I was like, okay.
While we're in NICU, the NICU staff was telling us her numbers had. She's phenomenal now.
Yeah, she was a lot better.
So she should be back to us by 11 and change at night. That night, we're like, yeah.
Which was only a couple hours later at this point. So we're like, okay, we'll go back to recovery.
She's finally doing
good.
Great
have
news.
Our food because, we're going to start taking care of our newborn. We're not going to have time to eat anymore. So went back to recovery. They had me eat some saltines first to make sure my stomach was okay. And then, I don't know, a half hour later, I finally got to eat my turkey sandwich.
Yep.
It was the best damn turkey sandwich I ever had in my life because I was so hungry.
I think the first thing we did when we got to the room was film a video. Like, it's so weird. We just got there and just
well,
filmed.
because we vlog, we daily vlog, so we kind of like updated our birth story vlog, which, well, not this is a birth story, but the original birth vlog.
It's down below. But anyway, we do that. She eats, and 11 and change rolls around. I'm getting tired. Like, I'm like passing out, and then baby doesn't show up. So at this point,
I keep asking everybody.
She's asking questions, and I'm passing out, and that's where I end. I got nothing more to the story. So
I keep waiting. I'm like, all right. They're like, yeah, she should be back, or we haven't heard anything. But she should be back. I'm like, okay. It's like 3 a.m. I'm like, what's going on? The baby's still not back. I haven't even slept or anything. I was just too concerned. Obviously, like it's just the strangest feeling to not be pregnant anymore, but not have a baby with you. Like I'll never forget that feeling. I just felt empty. Like it was. I just did not like it, and I wanted to go get her. Like so.
Never having a baby before and wanting that baby there is like such an odd feeling. Like I get that feeling. Like it makes sense to me. Like because I felt that way. I'm like, I'm in this room. We just had a baby, and the baby's not here. It's like where's the baby?
My heart aches for anybody that ever goes through anything like that. And
there are people whose babies stay in NICU for a while, and
and not to like ruin the whole story, but she wasn't even in NICU that long, like, and it was still heartbreaking. So like I said, my heart just aches for anybody that went through anything like that. But so back to the story. I think it was about 3 a.m. They told me, you can go see her. She failed one of her tests a little bit, or. Yeah, I think she, like...
It was too high at that point.
Yeah, it was too high. So, like, okay, whatever. They're like, you can go see her. So, he's passed out. I wake him up. I was like, do you want to go see the baby?
This was a funny conversation.
He's like, no. I'm like,
no.
I'm like, okay, you sure? He's like, no, you go ahead. You go spend time with your baby. I'm like, okay, don't tell me twice. And
I was laying there, and, like, when she woke me up, I'm just thinking to myself, I was like, don't, just let her be alone with your baby. Just let her. Because I got to spend so much time with her during, like... all the glucose testing and all that, like, Marissa needed her one-on-one time.
Plus she needed rest anyway, so...
It was her time. But just the exchange and the conversation,
it's like, no.
Nah, you do it. It's like, go ahead.
So they wheeled me down in the wheelchair to go see her, or up. I always forget which way. I don't know if she was upstairs, downstairs, but whatever.
We were on 6.
So I think she was downstairs.
On 4 or 2.
And it was just so strange being wheeled to the hospital, because there's literally nobody around back because of the coronavirus. Like, there's just nobody, like... Usually you see, like, the waiting room filled with people or anything. I mean, this was early in the morning, too, so I guess it makes sense. But, I don't know. Like, if people are giving birth, there's usually people waiting around, like, nobody. But anyway, so they bring me to her. I sit with her. I held her pretty much like this, like, the whole time. And I'm just, talking to her. And it was just such, like, a surreal moment just to be with her by myself and everything. Like... Yeah, very, very tiny. She was 20 and a half inches long, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
And
just under 2 feet.
I don't know if we said it. So 20 and a half inches long, 8 pounds even. She was very, very tiny. She was doing great. I mean, they just said that they wanted to keep her monitored for a little bit. I stayed for an hour. I wanted to stay longer, but I was due for my pain meds, and it was hitting me really hard, especially with the whole bladder thing going on.
I think we should make a separate video just about the pain after getting
Yeah, I think I have to, because that was very tough, the recovery. But anyway, so I stayed for an hour. They brought me back to the room. The NICU staff told me, they're going to test her again within that hour, and they let me know what's going on. I go back to the room, and this is where I'm getting a little confused what happened next.
I woke up.
I try to sleep, but breakfast comes at 7. There's doctors and nurses constantly coming in.
They don't stop.
No.
They tell you. Every time they come in, they tell you should get some sleep.
You can't sleep.
They don't let you.
No.
They're just like, I need to poke you with this. I need to touch you with that. Like, it's... Let a woman sleep.
So, I thought I went and visited her again, though. Did I only visit her once? That was it?
No, she didn't come back after. I mean, you didn't go back after that.
So then they told me she was going to come back after they did the next test, or she should. And then I got the call that when I was in NICU, I'm sorry, they told me her temperature was a little low or a little high. I have to go figure it out from the birth vlog, but whatever. It was either a little high or a little low, so they wanted to keep her longer, but she should be back probably, like, early morning, like around breakfast time, 7, 8 o'clock or something. I was like, okay, no problem. I'll go back and rest. And you know, 7, 8 o'clock comes around, nothing. I'm like, all right, here we go.
We kept asking too, like every time someone would come in, we're like, "Where's Scarlett?
Where's the baby?
And they're like, "Oh, she's on her way. They're coming with her now."
Yeah.
Like,
so
liars.
She ended up coming finally, March 13th at 11 a.m. They came wheeling her in the room, and it was such a great feeling. I remember I just was like, my baby, like, finally.
It was at that moment our lives changed forever.
We were officially a family.
And we definitely have to make a part 2 to this video, or like another part to this video.
I know this is really long.
Because of what happens after this is like amazing. Like, she can't do a damn thing. Like, she's got this,
can't.
Like, she can't move, and I'm like, all right, I guess I got to get ready.
Yeah, I think we really will. Day. We will. If you guys are interested, let us know. I think we should do a whole recovering after having a C-section video.
But at that point, we had our baby. Our baby was with us. She was healthy. She was fine. We were just ecstatic.
I don't know if you watch our vlogs at all, but just to get a better look, if you can see her bow's falling off, but that's okay.
Princess.
Like I said, she's 7 weeks today. Can't believe how big already. It flies by.
If you do want to see a continuance of this video and, you know, what happened after we got her, please let us know, because we'd be more than happy to tell you. It's just if we keep going with this story right now.
I already know this is so long. Like, if
it's gonna be like a 2-hour video. We don't want that.
I think this is probably a 2-part video. I think what we did here, but we'll find out.
So yeah, if you want to see that, just smash the like button. Leave comments down below. Make sure you subscribe if you're new. If you don't know who we are, my name's Ken. This is Marissa. This is baby Scarlett. You can follow us on social media. That's all down below as well. Just, you know.
And we daily vlog, so you could literally watch every day of this girl's life.
Every day of her life is on the internet. So when she's older, she can go back and see what she was and how she was, you know. It's kind of cool.
But that's going to be it. Thank you so much for watching this video. We really appreciate it. And let us know anything else you want to see. I'm going to try to do a video, like a postpartum update of like how I am, update on her. I want to do a 1-month update, but she's about to be 2 months now, so I guess we'll just squeeze it all together.
Yeah, we'll do a 1 and 2 month update in one. But anyway, we'll see you next time, guys. Thank you so much for watching. And like I said, leave a comment down below if you want us to do our part 2 of this, because there's still a lot more.
Recovery time.
Yes, recovery time.
Bye, guys.